the Indian pandit who went to Tibet to debate with the Chinese masters of the time about how should one meditate. So Master Kamalashila is an important that's okay. Maybe it's Kamalashila calling it. It's not quite correct. So didn't debate them publicly. Yeah. I thought it might be him calling. Yeah. So Master Kamalashila, for those of you who are interested in all, because we're learning so many things. We're learning some Sanskrit words and getting to the root meaning so we get an understanding of what these things mean. We're learning some Tibetan words. We're learning to talk to Kamalashila on the phone. We're also getting to see what practitioners of the time that got these ideas into their minds, how they turned it on to a reality. So Master Kamalashila, Master Vasavanda, Master Atisha, all these Sangha, etc., are examples for those of us who want to live and breathe and have a visceral experience of what it's like to be transformed by some ideas. These are the beings that we should be looking to. How do they do this and how do they do that? Because it gives you a taste of what it would be like for you to transform using these ideas. So Master Kamalashila was this dude who debated the Chinese view at the time that was held in some Buddhist communities, that meditating on absolutely nothing is what one should do. And Master Kamalashila said, no, you must have an object of meditation. And so a great debate happening at the time, and Master Kamalashila won, and the other guys got banished. And since then, the Tibetans have been meditating on an object. Yeah, it's not that meditation is blanking your mind out. And that's a very important distinction as to the results of meditative activity. Yeah, so that's Master Kamalashila. I didn't tell you that last week. There's only one known Tibetan commentary on the Dharmapada Sutra, and I didn't tell you that last week. I don't think I did. That's okay. Was that Master Kamalashila again trying to get through?
He's very persistent.
Yeah. So Master Vasavanda 350 AD, Master Kamalashila 750 AD, and the only Tibetan commentary on this work, which is what we're using mostly, is by a Lama called Lama Dragpa Shedrup. So Chonyi Dragpa Shedrup, and he lived in the 1600s, 1675 to 1748. That book is called Sunlight on the Path to Freedom, and without this book we would not be able to have this course the way we have it. This book was lost when the bombings happened in Tibet, when the Chinese invasion of Tibet happened, and many of the monasteries' libraries were burnt. This book was lost since that time and was found in 1995 by Geshe Michael Roach's ACI project. And so the only copy of this thing was found, and because of that we could study this thing, and now it's back in the lineage that we study. So it's the only Tibetan commentary out of all the commentaries that there are thousands. This is the only one on the Dharmapada Sutra, and it explains, it unlocks the meaning hidden behind a very strange sutra, because when you get to read the sutra by itself, it seems to repeat itself. It seems to deny what it just said, and that's why people like it. It's a little bit of a mystical sutra, and like I told you, there's like a prediction in the sutra. They who study this sutra will have something go wrong with them. Some terrible thing might happen, and that would be a purification of your karma. And then there's another word which I'll tell you later that says, whoever remembers just 4 lines of this sutra and teaches it to others and learns its meaning, their virtue would be more than filling a zillion planets with gold and treasures and giving it to others. So what the hell does all that mean? So there's all these like mystical ideas behind the sutra, and it's a bit sexy that way, because you're like, oh, secret meanings and so on. So it's important to get to the real and true meaning, otherwise we can just invent whatever the hell we want. Yeah, there is opportunity, if you understand the essence of this sutra, for true and deep transformation. And in fact, all the ACI courses that brought us to this point is for this reason. So if you haven't been convinced about your inner life yet, if you've been coming to any of these 5 classes, or if you have and your practice is a little bit dumbed down or tuned down, listen. I was thinking Monty Python, for all of those of you who are hard of hearing, listen! Little Monty Python. But, so, and apparently the Buddha saw this, that we would be teaching it this way in 2013. Yeah. So, Sunlight of the Path to Freedom by Chonye Lama, the Lama from Chonye, only Tibetan commentary. Then we talked about...
Quick question. Were there just no commentaries? Because the libraries were burned?
No, there were many commentaries, but there were no Tibetan commentaries. Everybody relied on the Indian commentaries by Master Kamala Shila or Master Vasubandhu. Yeah? And before them there were many more, and over time those disappeared. They either got condensed into other words or something like that. Then we talked about what are the 3 metaphors of the word diamond. Why is a diamond a metaphor for emptiness? Do you remember that? We talked about that last week. So give me the 3 reasons why diamond is a metaphor for this idea of ultimate reality. There's 2 realities, relative and ultimate. Why is the diamond a metaphor?
It's the hardest substance in our physical world, so it has that aspect of being the ultimate.
Right, so as the closest thing to an ultimate on the planet is the hardest thing on the planet. Only diamonds can cut diamonds, and in that respect a diamond is metaphorical to the most ultimate of realities, the idea of emptiness. The next one?
Like emptiness, it's all around us. Like if you had a diamond, a big diamond, you could see right through it and not notice that it was there.
Right.
Like emptiness, that's all around us.
So it's such a perfect structure that, unlike glass or somebody's new MacBook Pro cover, when you put it on its side, you could see colors through glass or things like that. But with diamond, if you had a big enough diamond, it would be completely invisible. We would be seeing each other exactly the same way. And like emptiness, it is completely pure,
Unscratchable.
If you
clear. What's a clear mean? It's all around you and you can't see it.
Can't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, also its value is great. No matter even if it's a little piece of diamond, it's still a diamond.
Okay. So the 3rd one is that even if you smash a diamond, you can't scratch it, you can smash it. Every tiny piece is identical to every other piece because of the chemical structure. It's a soft side and a hard side, and they break in a specific way. This is how diamond cutters have been cutting diamonds. In that respect, it's like emptiness because
emptiness of every individual object is the same as...
Excellent. So every emptiness is exactly the same as every other emptiness, and it's an absence of something.
Sounds like the ether theory that they gave up on in physics because they couldn't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
The ether theory?
The light, in other words, light, when they found out it's a wave, they say, okay, it must be through something, like sound goes through the air. So something they would call it the ether that the light is traveling through. But then they sort of gave up on it because they said they couldn't observe it. But they never decided it wasn't there.
Was it? Yeah. So with light they try whether it's a light or a wave or a particle, and they still alternate between the two.
Still not either, really.
Yeah.
It's also dark matter now.
Now it's dark matter. So they're the 3 ideas why emptiness or ultimate reality is metaphorically a diamond is that, right? So that being said, the most ultimate, the hardest thing, it's everywhere, and it's hard to see because it's so clear, the metaphor there. Why then is cutter in the word Bodhichitta or Bodhichitta? Why do we have cutter, and why is it important to have cutter? Because the early English translations of the Bodhichitta or the Bodhichitta forgot the Chitta and forgot the Chupa. So they call it the Diamond Sutra. Oh, let's study the Diamond Sutra. There's no such thing. It's a Diamond Cutter Sutra. Yeah. So why is it important to have the word cutter?
Cuts through delusions.
That's beautiful. Yeah. What cuts through delusions?
The sutra, which is the wisdom of emptiness.
Excellent. So this Prajna Paramita, this perfection of wisdom, cuts through illusions. That's good. Why else?
It cuts through even the understanding of emptiness. It goes beyond even that.
We talked about the 5 paths, and on the 3rd path, from the lineage that I've been learning and I'm sharing with you, on the 3rd path you have this experience of ultimate reality, the direct perception of emptiness, whatever that thing is. And upon coming out of that experience, this metaphor appears to you regardless whether or not you've had a diamond experience or not, according to these teachings. In relation to that, why would we have the word cutter in the title?
That experience cuts through, like when you come out of it, you can never see objects in the way that you thought you were seeing them, because you have that experience of.
Okay, that's not the answer, but that's a nice thing about that experience.
You realize everything you've experienced up to that point is wrong, so it cuts through to the reality.
No, maybe I didn't say it right last time.
Roots of your mental affliction.
Nope. Yes, let me tell you then, because everyone's guessing. They're saying right nice things, but you're guessing it.
Oh, because the diamond is the hardest thing to break through, and the self is like the hardest thing to.
Oh, you're so close. No, these are all nice things. These are all.
Cuts through the metaphor of the diamond.
That's it. Thank you very much. So the idea of the diamond cutter is that the experience of ultimate reality is so much more ultimate than the most ultimate thing we can find in this reality, which would be a diamond. It cuts through the diamond. Yeah. So it's the metaphor is destroyed. It's cut. Yeah. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you very much. But all the other guesses were really nice as well. Thank you. So then we talked about the scene. The scene is set up. It's the year whatever. The Buddha gets up. The sutra starts by one of the people that were there saying, "Once I heard these teachings," like all the sutras start, and they describe the scene. And the scene is that the Buddha gets up, puts on his clothes, goes out to beg.
You're in the Prince Jetta Garden.
Prince Jetta Garden in a city called Shravasti. Yeah, good. So then they have this scene. He goes into town, begs for food, comes back, they take their meal, cleans the bowl, changes, washes his mouth, something you do before you teach, not have coffee. And then he sits down and he enters some kind of meditative concentration, and this magical being Subhuti, who's at all of his things, sits down, prostrates, drops his shawl from his left shoulder, I think, gets on his right knee and asks him this question. He starts off by saying, "Oh, great honored one, oh beloved, oh magnificent, you who are so great, yeah, who like bodhisattvas, you teach bodhisattvas so well, and all these other great beings." He asks him a question. What's the question?
How should a
3
bodhisattva
things.
live?
How should a bodhisattva live?
How should a bodhisattva
Practice, and how should they keep their thinking, their thoughts, right? And that's it. That's where we left it last week. That's a review. You can do the exam and you will pass. Thank you. So today we go to the Buddhist answer. I'm going to give you the short version because we're doing 2 classes. We're very advanced. We're doing 2 classes, 2-hour classes. That's 4 hours in 2 hours, and I can't even do a 2-hour class in 2 hours. So I wish you luck. Yeah. The first class that we're going to do today is on this side of the board, people. Yeah, and it's the Buddhist answer. So here's Subhuti. He goes, "Oh, you who know absolutely everything, you're so magnificent, keeper and knower of all things. You've helped so many beings, and you hold bodhisattvas, these people who have this wish to help everybody in such high regard. How should they think? What should they do? How should they practice? You know, and the Buddha goes, very nice question, congratulations, thank you very much. Yeah, and he says, he says this thing in 3 parts. A bodhisattva, a person of good noble standing, a person who's wanting to reach that higher path of helping all living beings. You should think of every sentient being, and he begins to describe and break down all the collection of sentient beings. I'll do that in a second. Yeah? And you should think, I will take them all beyond grief. I will take them all to nirvana. I will take them on. The Tibetan word for beyond, for nirvana is beyond grief or beyond sorrow. We'll do that in just a second. So the first thing he does, the Buddha goes, let's talk about what should you think? You should think all these sentient beings. So he gives 3 divisions, and there are many divisions of all sentient beings, for 2 reasons. One, to make sure he covers everybody. So he starts describing this kind of beings and that kind of beings. And secondly, and this is found in the commentary, to show Subhuti that there are innumerable number of beings beyond his perception. And you think you know every sentient being? You're living in this little world called Manhattan? Yet you think this is the center of the universe? Go to another part of the planet, and that's just humans. Go see other. The Buddha begins to describe the innumerable number of beings in all these ways that you can perceive them, because he has perceived these beings. So that's the first thing I'd like to introduce, and then I'll tell you what to do with them. Yeah. So first we'll talk about all these sentient beings, then we'll talk about what the Buddha says to do with them, and then I'll tell you this mystical thing that happens. Then we'll have a break. Yeah. Good. Any questions? Going once, going twice. The first 4 division. So sentient, is sentient up there? Okay. Kye is to be born, ne is place, and she is for. That's okay. So this is 4 ways a being can be born. But what you should know is that in Tibetan, the word for sentient being is mind possessor. That thing which possesses a mind. Okay, so it should give you a very specific group of things on the planet, not rocks, okay, not plants, amoeba. So, I mean, there's somewhere in there is where we get grade, yeah, but there are a specific set of things on this planet which are sentient mind possessors, and this is a division of that. So in that way, it's very clear, the Tibetan explanation of sentient being, mind possessor. But in a way, sort of technically incorrect, because does the Buddha have a mind? Do you think the Buddha has a mind? A Buddha, do they have minds? Yeah. For some reason, they are not sentient. They are beyond sentient, but they have minds. So technically, a bodhisattva should be trying to help a Buddha, even though he possesses a mind. So it has the implication of a stained mind, sentient. Okay? So a samsaric mind, a suffering mind, a mind that... I guess so, yeah. Or whether it fears it or not is dying. Yeah.
Well, because anything sentient will protect itself.
Yeah, run away from things that's hurting, or go towards things they like. Correct. Good. So here is one of the first division is these 4 ways of being can be born in samsara, and I'll go really quick through them. Here we go. So say gongkye. So gong means egg, and kye means born. So beings born from an egg. So that should chickens. Say gelkye, and that's womb born. Beings born from a womb. That would be you guys and me, yeah? Mm-hmm. The next one is Drusher le Kiewa. So say Drusher le Kiewa. So Dru is warmth, Share is moisture and to be born. So creatures born from warmth and moisture. Yes.
Spontaneous generation.
Oh yeah, that's another. We have that in the Middle Ages. I think we called it spontaneous generation. Yeah. Basically, it means it's summer. There's all these warm pools of water everywhere, and these things are coming out of these pools of water. These moist. I mean, you'd have lots of them in Indonesia, wouldn't you, David? Yeah, quite lots of these beings coming out of warmth and moisture. Yeah. And then the last one. So we know these beings now as coming from an egg, right? Gongkir, yeah? So we would know there's beings. So there's beings born from egg, born from womb, born from warmth and moisture, or appearing from warmth and moisture. And the last one, say Tsute Kewa. And this is miraculous birth. What this means, it doesn't mean miraculous birth as we know it in a Christian perspective. It means complete. You appear complete as an adult being, as a whole being. There's two ways that happens in the whole system of the 6 realms. The first one is in the hell realms, in the realms where there is suffering only. You don't have a hell mom and a hell dad and go to the hell nanny and they look after you until you're ready to get killed and so on, right? You appear fully adult. Your karma is to be projected into a fully adult state, sometimes clothed, and you experience these horrible sufferings instantly. Your first impulse in that world is to defend yourself with the samsaric impulses which you were describing before. If you don't like something, you usually attack back or run away from it. So aggression with aggression is the thing that describes this realm. So this is one of, I can't prove that one to you, it's what the Buddha said, yeah? That a hell being would be a complete birthed in this way. Another way, which is the Bardo state, the in-between state between lives, where you don't technically have a kind of body like this, you have this kind of slight form. You are born there as a complete being, similar to the being that you will become after the Bardo, for those of you who are interested in that part. So that would be a Zutekewa. So that's the first of the divisions the Buddha says. He goes, think of all beings born from an egg, born from womb, warmth and moisture, or spontaneously generated beings. That should cover everyone, right? And then just in case he didn't get it, he'll go, well, here's another division. Think of, say, Sukchen. Sukchen, is that up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sukchen and Sukchen Min. So for those of you who have been here enough times to know some Tibetan, they're both exactly the same, and one has min at the end. What would min mean?
No.
Not. Yeah, good. So one is something and something not. Yeah? So Suk is body. No, sorry. I went straight to Sukchen. I apologize. Let me jump forward.
You want Sukchen?
I do want Sukchen. Okay, body possessor. Sukchen, body possessor. And Sukchen mean?
Physical body.
No physical body possessor, right? So without a body. So those with a body and those without a body. And that is describing the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. So that's all. He's saying, by saying, think of all beings, the ones born from egg and moisture, etc., or think of them in this way, those with body and those without body. So he's talking about the beings with body are us in the desire realm, because our main preoccupation is with sex and food, desire. The form realm, which you have a subtle kind of form, and then those without bodies, the formless realm. Right? So for those of you who had studied,
I think I should say that these are heavenly realms. Pleasure realms.
Great. So the formless realm and the form realm are the form realm would be something similar to the Christian idea of heaven, where everybody is joyful and happy. Or in the 6 realms, you have the devas and the the gods and demigods, right? They belong to that group of beings, where if everything is your karma ripening, then it's quite logical and reasonable that your mind could experience yourself in this subtle kind of lovely body, like a heaven where time goes on for a long time, everything is pleasurable, everybody's smiling at each other and holding hands and saying sweet things and having cafe lattes. Yeah? So that would be the form realm, and then there's the formless realm where there is no physicality, there's no place for your mind, yeah, and then other than where you are, and so you're not restricted by form, and mostly there you are also in a godly realm, if you like, in a little bit more isolated than in the form realm. You are mostly enjoying and experiencing the pleasures of karma without any of the deep suffering experienced in the desire realm. But they are still connected to samsaric, to a suffering realm. So the idea of a god or godly or semi-god realm in the Buddhist explanation is not a good thing. It's not a favorable birth. There's two ways to get to either of those realms. There's a causal and what's the other one? One's produced because you produced it, and the other one is a resultal way to get there. The bottom line is that in these realms, beyond this place, the Buddha is saying to Subhuti, you want to know how a bodhisattva should act and think and be? Well, first you've got to consider the immensity of beings in existence. They are way beyond your seeing. You can't see them, Subhuti. Yeah, they are in the form and formless realm. This place is a chock-a-block with beings. You should consider them first. He does one more division, and that one more division is Dushe Chen. Is that there? Yeah. Dushe Chen and Dushe Mepa. And that just means discrimination possessor, and Mepa would be no discrimination. So possessing discrimination and not possessing discrimination. Now for those of you who did karma class and past and future lives, is there such a mind that does not discriminate? Is there a mind that does not discriminate between right, black and white, good and bad, male, female?
The mind that it's experiencing emptiness.
Ah, very nice. Okay, good. So is that a permanent state if you're in samsara?
No.
Okay, good, excellent. So what's he mean by those that don't discriminate? We had it in the meditation course, I think. Thank you. People who are in deep states of meditation, so much so that you could say, arguably, they are not discriminating. But just as an aside, this isn't the point of Buddhism to get to a point where you can't tell the difference between what hurts and what doesn't hurt, what's good for you and what's bad for you. That's not a thing. Yeah, and I know when I was growing up and learning these practices, I thought, oh, at some point I'm supposed to put up with you punching me in the head, and it would never bother me, you know? Like, stop punching me in the head. Like, you would disappear from punching me in the head. That's another story. Yeah, but for me to put up with or not discriminate whether that's a good thing to harm someone or not, that's not the case here. So there's a third division of that, and he says those who are in between Dushe Chen and Dushe Mepa. So if you have people with gross discrimination like you and I, who see things as this is food and I want to eat it, and that's not food, that's poop and I shouldn't eat it, that's good discrimination, right? For us, it's very gross level of discrimination on many levels. Then you have people with nearly no discrimination at all because they are in such deep states of meditation, and then he says, and those in between. So who would that include? Everyone else, right? So that's another way of him to say, look, there's just so many beings. And you can divide them in all sorts of ways, but this place is chock-a-block of sentience of minds experiencing suffering. Samsaric minds is the implication here. He says, you, Subhuti, should think of them. He even asks him, I think it's at this part, he goes, how far is it to the left of you? How far is it to the front of you? How far is it to the right of you? And Subhuti goes, so can't measure it. He goes, that many. That many. Right? So now we go what to do with those beings, right? So he's described, so Subhuti like, please tell us, how should we do, what to do, what should we do with these beings? And the Buddha says, what do we have up here? So that word there, Nyang Gen Ladepa, is the Tibetan word for nirvana. Yeah? So Ngen is beyond grief or sorrow. And Ladepa is to go beyond. And it's the way that Tibetans got the word nirvana in Sanskrit and put it into a Tibetan lexicon, to go beyond grief. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what grief means, because it has some components. But nirvana comes from there's a root sound in Sanskrit, van, which is where we get the word wind, yeah, which is to blow out, to extinguish, to blow out, to nirvana, yeah. And the Tibetans chose to explain that as beyond grief. Or another word they use there is tarpa, that means freedom, to go beyond grief or to go to freedom. So what would there be freedom for? To go beyond what?
Sorrow.
Beyond sorrow. What would that mean? What's sorrow for us?
To go beyond ignorance.
Suffering, ignorance, all these things, right? All the things that keep beings, all that innumerable number of creatures, we are not the only ones on the universe, going through the same cycles that we go through. He's saying you should think of all of them. The Bodhisattva should think of all of them. And you should build something that you should take them out of grief, out of samsara, out of this suffering, out of that, all the things that cause suffering. So grief in Tibetan, associated with the thing that gives you grief is your kleshas, your afflictive emotions. And there are 6 traditional ones. Cliff, can you remember what they are? The six and then 22. The 6 afflictive emotions. There's like anger, jealousy, pride, ignorance.
Busyness.
Busyness. Maybe it's right. Jealousy, anger, ignorance,
right.
Attachment.
I got it. Yeah. Oh, it is.
I'm not sure that's traditional.
I've got 5. I can't get 6. I was thinking about it on my way here. I'm like, I don't know them.
Lost, no.
But it's them. It's the big pain in the ass ones that keep us constantly occupied, looking at whatever's happening to us. And when those things come up, we are blinded and we do the wrong thing. Why the wrong thing? Because somebody says it's wrong? Because it was a bad thing to do? No. Because it will cause you suffering later. Because doing the wrong thing, because you were angry or jealous or stupidly blind, means you didn't understand causality, and that thing returning to you from you will cause you suffering. So to go beyond sorrow, to go beyond grief, is about going beyond these 6 afflictive emotions, and they have 22 cousins, 22 types of, so there's, if you get jealousy, there's like this specific kind of jealousy and then that specific kind of jealousy, and they can be grouped into jealousy, and they give birth to 84,000. I didn't count them, the Buddha counted them, and I'll go with that. 84,000 permutations of stupid thinking that causes suffering, not just for us in this flavor, for other beings in other flavors. Yeah, we perpetuate. So here the Buddha is saying, what should you do with all these sentient beings? You should take them beyond sorrow. You should, those things we call sentient beings, whoever you call sentient beings, you should take them to nirvana. blow out their suffering. That's how a bodhisattva should think. I need to tell you this just in case it's on your homework. So grief and sorrow would include 3 components, and we sort of talked about them. First is the afflictive emotion, right? Anger, jealousy, or whatever. And because you're doing that, it forces you to do an action. Like, I'm jealous of you, so I'll think and then say or do something to get what I see you have, rather than having joy that you've got something that I want, therefore it must be a good thing. Our first impulse is, I want it for me. Yeah? Unlike a smaller MacBook Pro that has lower resolution. Yeah. Well, it's not so big. Yeah. And then it causes you to act, to generate karma. And the way that I'm thinking about karma nowadays, the more I'm trying to think about a practical application of the word karma.
Action?
Besides it being action, is after the karma class, where we know it's a habit, it's a thought pattern, it's an imprint, it's all these things. In the absence, so you are experiencing a situation, and that situation has no nature from its own side. If you could not know the nature of that situation, you are forced to only experience whatever is in your pool of karma, of experience, and that's all you see. Yeah?
Situation?
Because it's habituated, you're more likely to be this kind of person. So you...
Mind blowing.
Yeah. It's sitting in there, in your storehouse of just this life. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that because it comes up later. Just this life, we have stepped into a conveyor belt of existence. That means we were born in this kind of Western hemisphere. That alone produces a whole bunch of habituations. That's the environmental karma we talked about in the past class. Where did that come from? Why did you get this and not Africa? Right? That's got to have a cause. So that in itself produces you to habituate that again. More of that, or to respond to that if it's a negativity. Then you grab your family and friends and which town you were born in. And that lets you habituate and do that again. And then you record that neuron pathway, you record it. Just in this life we do that. And you can only see what you've been habituating. Yeah? If someone says something to me and it's interpretable, which way am I going to interpret other than what's there for me? That's what that. And then acting on that, thinking that's truth, that's really how it is, that's the mistake. Okay, so grief, going beyond grief, is understanding this pool of afflictive emotions that produce us to do karma, that therefore cause suffering. So when the Buddha says, those things you call sentient beings, and they can be this or that, from egg, from this, from the other, they're all going through these things. You have to take them beyond grief. Wow, that's important. So what's that mean? That he's saying bodhicitta, right? He's saying bodhicitta. And what's the definition of bodhicitta that we know?
The wish for total enlightenment for all beings.
The wish for total enlightenment for the sake of all living beings, right? Who said that? Where did we get that definition from? He sits on a chair, not cross-legged. Maitreya, not your Treya, Maitreya.
I'm sorry.
No, you're supposed to laugh. It makes me feel really good.
Oh, I'm sorry for not.
Did he write it down or did someone else write it down? Nope.
He whispered
Nope.
it.
Yes, Asanga, thank you. Dictated to Asanga by, Master Asanga by Maitreya. The future Buddha said, bodhicitta is the wish for total enlightenment for the sake of every living being. So the Buddha says to Subhuti, let's see if I got the right quotation, those beings you call sentient beings, you should take them, the Buddha says, you must save everyone called sentient being, take them beyond sorrow, take them beyond sorrow. All these divisions that I just gave you. Yeah? So he's talking about bodhicitta. What's the difference between what the Buddha said and what Maitreya said? What did the Buddha say to Subhuti?
He said nirvana.
He said, take them to nirvana, full nirvana, yeah, which is enlightenment. That's I'll go there. But what did he say? And what did Maitreya say that was slightly different?
Is it because Maitreya said no wish as opposed to the Buddha saying like you have to do it?
Correct. Beautiful, right? So Maitreya's like, you should generate this. You should do something first, then you can help them. Is basically what Maitreya says. This one's saying, the Buddha's saying to Subhuti, if you want to think and act and do like a bodhisattva, you should grab all these things you call sentient beings and take them to nirvana. Beyond greed, full nirvana. So why is that important? That's important because of the next line of the Buddha, and then we'll have a little break, yeah?
Yeah.
So the next line of the Buddha says, even if you could do what I just say, even if you could take every sentient being born from an egg, born from a womb, born from moisture, with mind, without mind, even if you could, this innumerable, take them to full nirvana, no one would reach nirvana at all. That's what he says. So even if you could, there'll be nobody that got there. That's the translation.
Welcome to the diamond.
From Geshe Michael. So I want to leave you on that. I want you to have a break. I want you to come back at 1:45, and then we'll continue on the next part. Why is that important? Yeah? Then it gets sort of mystical. Enjoy. See you at 1:45, please. Thank you. Let's hear it. Thank you. Algo te va a pasar.
Before I came back, I just found out about my mom was having a wood and I just found out.
What happened?
Most more best than you guys.
Está bien, sí, sí, sí.
You're always doing best.
¿A dónde? ¿En el corazón o acá?
$20 from you.
Hey, did you see that video?
You should work on the video.
Never seen it. My brother.
I've heard so much about it, but I haven't paid attention to what's going on.
My brother who lives in Sydney, Australia, hired him along with another friend of his to work there for 6 years. Cool.
That's pretty awesome.
He's not really allowed to tell him. Well, he can tell people, but I'm bragging.
Yeah. Oh, yes. No.
That's okay. The closest I know they're going to
Tu
go
hermana, tu mamá.
likely, in all likelihood.
The closest I've ever been. That's funny. Like, it's not even you.
How are you doing?
Good. Sleeping very late.
You same business?
Yeah.
What do you got going on? You got clients? I know you got
En esa
a...
casa, con todas esas experiencias, como wow.
And now I'm meditating.
¿Qué? Limpiámelo, por favor. Wow.
No,